Okay.
Perfecto.
Okay.
Quería tener certeza para no hacer cosas. Está
Okay.
grabando ahora, pero sin problema. De pronto le decimos que deje un segundo ahí y empiece cuando él...
Okay, when would you like to share your presentation? It's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for inviting me to contribute to your conference from across the water. May I bring greetings from interprofessional colleagues in Europe and beyond, who, as it happens, are also meeting this week with a virtual conference addressing very much the same issues. The things that preoccupy you preoccupy all of us all over the world, and the more we can learn from each other in the interprofessional family, the more that may help. Accustomed though it is to challenge, the interprofessional movement is being overwhelmed by the pandemic. A challenge that knows no boundaries between professions, between institutions, between organizations, and between nations. A challenge generating not only unprecedented demands, but also unprecedented opportunities for collaboration on which our very survival depends. Professional learning is the key to collaboration. It is the means by which professions set aside rivalries and differences as they join in common cause, pool their resources, and engage with tasks beyond the capacity of any one of them alone. This is the process that we have been refining by trial and error for some 30 years, more rigorously, more systematically, and more convincingly over time, blending evidence from experience and from research. All that was threatened in the UK when universities were locked down. Campuses were closed, teaching put online, and learning materials reworked in haste. Interprofessional learning fell victim to the problems with which it was being called upon to engage. Yet, colleagues assure me that it is proving to be the catalyst for a more creative, nuanced, and expanded approach to working across boundaries. The challenge for interprofessional educators, you and me, is to achieve more with less by strengthening the capacity of interprofessional learning to respond where and when the pandemic demands closer collaboration, by compensating for constraints on face-to-face learning, by exploiting advances in educational technology, by capitalizing on the liberalization of learning, and by prioritizing interprofessional learning where it promises to be most effective. The pandemic has generated a cocktail of problems, demanding collaboration where interprofessional learning can help. To which of these should we as interprofessional educators respond? To health promotion, health education, economics, employment, housing, recreation and leisure, income maintenance and welfare rights, community development, or environmental protection. Responding to all or any of them, if and when asked for, when we are asked for information and advice, so be it. Hesitant, though, before inviting others to join our interprofessional learning programs, lest their inclusion dilutes, dissipates, fragments, and overloads. 1,000 flowers may bloom, but some wither on the vine. Arguably, our task is challenging enough, building on our tried and tested track record in primary and secondary care. Yet interprofessional learning is spreading further and further. Where then should we draw its boundary? Around public health, I suggest, including any or all of the fields that I have listed, ensuring that each time the case is made to add another, that it will enrich our overall understanding of public health. Public health has long been the poor relation in the interprofessional family. Must that remain so? Or can it become the context that embraces them all? Face-to-face teaching is in jeopardy. Students must learn alone, at home and online. One-to-one tutorials and team-based learning is curtailed, and practice placements harder to negotiate. Must our standards be compromised? Some regulatory bodies are waiving their requirements for as long as the pandemic lasts, with no guarantee that universities, once they become accustomed to alternative styles of learning, will return to tried and tested methods when the pandemic ends. Simulated learning is a timely reinforcement for face-to-face learning, but it is not a substitute. Can researchers help us, Zane, to evaluate the relative impact of face-to-face and simulated learning separately and in combination? Comparative evaluations of the efficacy of learning approaches may, however, remain elusive pending advances in research methodology. These challenges become less daunting as we discover how liberating online learning can be. Initial costs rise to restructure programs and reorient teachers, but running costs fall from fees for venues, insurance cover, and presenters and participants' expenses, travel, and overnight accommodation. Can your virtual meeting, with another being convened this week by my CAIPE colleagues here in London, show how? In London, teachers and students from the Netherlands are presenting to others from Africa, Australia, Brazil, Sri Lanka, Switzerland, Qatar, Ireland, England, Wales, and Scotland during a conference attracting 3 times the number of participants than we've had in previous years at conferences conventionally designed and delivered. Incorporating interprofessional learning into pre-registration courses will continue, but webinars and workshops between experienced practitioners can and will impact more directly and more immediately on the compelling challenges. Research may help to determine the different effects of different interprofessional learning structures and methods. You've given me, and the three others, is to help draft guidelines for interprofessional learning during the pandemic. May I volunteer the following? To redefine the primary purpose of interprofessional learning to cover public health, to exploit the liberalization of learning to affect economies and optimize uptake, to set aside requirements for face-to-face learning, but no longer than is inescapable, to invoke the technological enhancement of learning, and to compare the effects of face-to-face and simulated learning, whether separately or in combination. The interprofessional movement is in the midst of its toughest challenges ever, but better prepared and better equipped to cope than at any time during its short history. All support networks are firmly established, backed by the WHO regions like WAHO, led by International Interprofessional Global, with its research sister organization, as a younger generation of teachers subjects their programs to rigorous evaluation and the interprofessional literature grows exponentially, peer-reviewed in learning journals. All that augurs well as we see glimmers of light at the end of the COVID-19 tunnel. Thank you.